Futurama comic issue 70. There's a sign in space saying to fly safely, and the waste of time sign gets knocked away by the Planet Express. Bender drives recklessly and does a sloppy landing, and Farnsworth tells him that the damage he's caused will cost a fortune, and he hopes that his solo delivery mission was successful. Considering that he said he wasn't gonna trust him with those because of the time he betrayed him by stealing the cargo and selling it for himself, it makes no sense that he'd trust him on a solo mission now. Bender's probably lying when he said he had to dump the cargo when surrounded by pawnbrokers, because he's too casual and proceeds to count his money. Farnsworth complains that he hasn't earned a cent since the crew came down with the comet cold. Farnsworth could invent anything, except a cure for this apparently. You'd think he'd just send their minds into clones he created of them. That'd be just as good. Zoidberg gets blamed for giving all of them the sickness. What took his crew so long to ask Farnsworth for a cure? Farnsworth isn't sure he can cure them, and then complains that he's grown too old to solve this dilemma, and says he'd sell his soul to be young again. He's not that kind of doctor, so it could make sense if he didn't know to cure them, because he'd have to know how the body works, even if I could believe he could make a nanomachine. Somehow the robot devil heard him and warps over to him in a flash of lightning. I wonder if a wizard gave him his apparent supernatural powers. Out of complete nowhere, he arbitrarily tells Farnsworth that if he makes this deal with him, he could never practice science again. It doesn't make sense that he agrees, because obviously, one, he's making this deal with him so that he could be smart enough to use his science talent to cure his crew. And two, he could use his science talent to keep transferring his mind to a clone of himself that's at 20 years old or something when he gets too old. He can even transfer minds to robots. Instead, he agrees to this blatantly stupid deal despite being told that science is his true calling. He doesn't even say that he thinks science experiments backfire on him too much, and that he shouldn't be a scientist because he wants to make doomsday devices. So he greets the crew saying he's young again, so he's gonna take off with his change. He drives off, and Robot Devil plans on following him to send him to Robot Hell for breaking their contract. Why doesn't he just send him there right away if he wants him there? Why would he be honorable enough to only do it after he breaks his contract when he's looking forward to that happening? It's not like he'd feel upset and betrayed and want to punish him. He wants him to break the contract. If he wants to send non-robots to Robot Hell, and can, what's stopping him from doing that a lot more without contracts? He's told to get on the bus already, and Bender gets out from the luggage covering him in the back of Farnsworth's car, and acts mad about it as he wakes up from his nap, only to say he was just joking and wants to hang out with them for fun instead. Farnsworth drives to a fancy joint because now that he's young, he can remember all of the places where he stashed his money. So he's paying for everything. The Robot Devil's in a silly lady disguise on a gambling granny bus, and he's cheerful about it, instead of embarrassed. Then Farnsworth stupidly bets a lot of money. If he was really a genius, he wouldn't gamble. He wins the game, and goes to the gym to lift weights. He needs some help because he chose an overly large barbell from overconfidence. That night, he wonders where Bender went, and Bender says Farnsworth is missing all the fun and is in a hot tub with fembots. Farnsworth says he spent all day in the infirmary and expects Bender to keep it down while he's in bed. He says he wants peace and quiet, and gets attacked by a dangerous tiger that Bender bought with Farnsworth's money for no reason. That was dumb. 2 weeks later, the crew's healthy again. Hermes gets told that no one knows how to turn on the central billing computer other than Farnsworth, and he didn't even write down how to do it because he's stupid. And the central plumbing's not working, and the laundry unit turned Zoidberg's jacket pink because it's on the fritz. It's more likely that it got turned pink because he put white clothes in with red stuff like Fry's jacket. So after the crew see how much they need Farnsworth because of a bunch of contrivances that were invented purely for this story, with not even his clone Gilbert being able to help them, Because this somehow leads to the crew being threatened by laser-shooting robots and a host, Bender tells Farnsworth that the apple-picking and corn maze were snooze fest, and it's been a drag since they left Atlantic City. Farnsworth didn't act like a drag when he was in Fry's body, when he was body switched with him. He gets told to sit down in a capsule with a sign relaxing capsules on it to justify him falling for a trap. Farnsworth sends him on a rocket ride back home, and flies over New Paris with an old-fashioned plane. Robot Devil's spying on him while working as a waiter for tourists who want french fries. Fry tries to get a hot cup of coffee and it sprays fire. Hermes says his calculator is not calculating, and the floor polisher blew up. I don't know how Cubert's so useless because he's supposed to be a genius. What's the point of his character then? A clearly unfunny strawman for critics isn't a good point for a character. Bender's capsule shows up. The tractor beam grabs the meteor out in space and pulls it towards the Earth. Malfunctioning. I don't know why all of these inventions started malfunctioning. It seems to only start happening to force them to want him back, when normally they wouldn't. It'd make more sense if they want him back because they went to an alien planet on delivery and something went wrong and they needed his science. I could buy the plumbing system going wrong because that happens sometime, but this is all too much. Leela says the tractor beam must be how the capsule got here. And Farnsworth comes back for a visit. Robot Devil lies say he's just here because Robot Hell is being fumigated. He's a robot, he wouldn't care. Cubert, the so-called genius, who was only made to be an heir to Farnsworth, accidentally set off the building's security system and locked them all in the building. So Farnsworth is in enough danger to tell Zoidberg to cut these wires, and he gets turned old again. Then he ends up sending the meteor back into deep space. Jimmy Neutron already did a plot where he turned himself stupid and then he had to send a meteor back into deep space. It's a problem that could have easily not happened just to force him to have to be needed to be a genius again. He says he has to come to hell with him, but it turns out that he signed the contract in Cubert's blood instead because he always keeps a spare supply in case he needs an emergency transfusion. Cubert's blood would obviously be his, because Cubert's a clone of him. It seems smart, but he could make an even smarter decision, and not need this. So he gets out of the contract confusingly easily, when I don't see why he had to sign it in his blood instead of in ink. He says he's already promised his soul to 3 other devils before the Robot Devil, and calls them over to him. So a bunch of devil aliens show up who come from an alien planet that happens to be called Hell. I really wish it was called something else. How did he even meet them? Why would the devils want to always be able to hear him so that he can call them over to him? Wouldn't they not want to be distracted by constantly hearing what's around him all the time? So he sends them after the Robot Devil, saving himself with the Deus Ex Machina. He could have just shot him with a ray gun, or sent robots in his pockets after him. He says he'll treat the crew to a Frogurt cup with his coupons. And the story ends with the crew walking away without remembering to open Bender's capsule up. I guess they all want a break from him. Futurama Comic Issue 71. Zoidberg and Bender like eating pizza boxes, and I know that they're an alien and robot respectively, but that's still confusing. And Fry says he can actually feel the cheese of the pizza going down his throat, as if he's somehow not already used to that from eating pizza. They were given samples from the delivery they're about to make, which is convenient, because it never happens. Fry wants to find a clean shirt to make a good impression on a girl we haven't seen from that planet. Fry tells Bender not to act so casual when he's desperate to impress a girl too. For some reason, Leela shows up to them wearing a nice outfit with her hair down. It's lampshaded that there's a planet made entirely out of sauce, but I'd rather it be explained. Even if with something as simple as a wizard did it. It's explained that Leela's dressed like this to try to get a guy's attention. They get invited in to have a bite to eat, and then the guy suspiciously whispers to a robot to stick to the plan and keep them occupied until the ship's fully loaded. He flirts with Leela speaking Italian. I'm guessing the Italian words are a joke, like insulting to her, since it's a comedy. And Fry stupidly says that he misses Sophia like Canadians miss living in igloos, when most of them don't live in igloos. And I've never been in one, so he's accidentally saying that he doesn't miss her. Bender tells the fanbot they should go somewhere quieter away from his friends. The guy Alec says nice things to her to keep her happy, cleverly saying that talking only to people with two eyes gets boring. They kiss and he has one eye open and looks at Sophia, who gives him a signal and tells Fry to eat while she'll put on something more comfortable. She hopes the shipment's loaded, while looking annoyed, and Alex says it'll be 5 more minutes and hopes their plan will work this time. The fembot gets asked where she is with Bender, and says she asked him to go pick her up some flowers. And since there aren't any flowers and it's all molten sauce, Bender gets blinded by it. Leela gets told that the cargo is loaded and the clock is ticking, and all of them finally leave in the ship. But there's suspiciously good luck from all 3 of them at once getting people to kiss on that one planet was too good to be true, which was obvious from the start. They get approached by a spaceship shaped like a giant cannoli, and they're given a radio message telling them to turn off their engines and prepare to be boarded. A bad guy calls Leela, calling her dull, even though that's outdated slang, and says that he could blast her ship and stop the shipment to Tony Marinara, but he'd rather destroy her crew face to face first, which he somehow considers to be more gentlemanlike. Leela tells Bender to let her set the coordinates, and the ship crashes through the spaceship's risotto-fueled drive, going from one end to another. The ship escapes, and an alien says it's raining burnt cheese, and Fry doesn't feel good because he tried to eat the inside of a spaceship. The ship gets to the #1 fast food and discotheque planet in the galaxy, where Tony's waiting impatiently. Leela tells Tony that they ran into Frankie T, who wanted to steal his shipment of pizza sauce. And she's told that there's been a pizza war going on here, and this week alone he had 5 new stores move in on this block because he ran out of his sauce. He hits his employee for being unnecessarily rude to Leela. That'd still be illegal of them. Then the crew and Tony get put under arrest by the Food, Drug, and Illegal Alien Police because Tony's smuggling illegal aliens in the sauce. And the aliens realistically have astronaut suits of some kind, so that they can still breathe in it. And the crew are put under arrest for harboring the wanted fugitives they were kissing. They wanted to escape their planet this way because it was the only way, and Tony had been keeping them prisoner there for years. I hate everything the crew's been put through. I hate that the crew is being arrested and forced to go through a trial when they were completely clueless to the whole thing. What proof do they have that they knew about these 3 being on their ship? And Tony tells little Tony to kill anyone who complains about the food, right in front of a guy arresting people. And he should know that they wouldn't be able to get away with it. The ship was towed, and Hermes says they owe an unrealistic amount of money. Amy says their friends need their help, but Farnsworth says what they need is a good lawyer, and Hermes agrees that their help will only get them in more trouble, because they'd break them out of jail. Somehow the crew gets found guilty and told they'll be given a ridiculous punishment even though they didn't know they were harboring those people. And those people could very easily tell the judge and jury or the lawyer that they didn't know they had them on the ship. But that'd not be frustrating to read. And they don't care. Bender gets a Morse code message from the fembot saying she loves him and needs his help and says he's gotta do something. If she loves him, she'd tell the judge and jury that they didn't know they were on the ship. Frustratingly, it's not explained how Bender ended up being able to disguise himself as one of the police in the prisoner transport ship, even though he would be supervised on the way to the jail. He somehow managed to show up to the fugitives to free them. Is this all a dream of his? Then after a page is wasted on Tony for no reason with dialogue I don't care about, the fugitives go to Planet Express along with the crew, and Farnsworth wonders why he shouldn't just call the police. How did the crew get here? The lady kisses him a lot, and Hermes shows loyalty to his wife while Fry and even Amy raise their hands wanting kisses from her. Then there's an explosion because of some robots from the Mafia and Tony. Tony tells them that all they had to do was take the 4-year sentence, because they would have been secretly replaced with clones and freed in no time. Well, they didn't know that. Too bad he couldn't have told them his plan. I wish he did get to go through with his plan, because then their escape would have made sense. It turns out that the reason Tony trapped his children on that planet was that they were playing with his nuclear missile collection and accidentally blew up Long Island. Why would he have those? Why would it be so easy to use them? He says he's taking his kids back home and gives Fry some coupons for free delivery on orders for over $3,000. The fembot stays with Bender, But it doesn't matter because she got a cooking show on TV, off screen. And Bender dumped her right away because he thinks famous girls are nothing but trouble. I wish he explained himself properly. He could explain that he doesn't want the paparazzi. Amy says that the illegal aliens that gave the sauce its extra delicious flavor became citizens, and now are used to hot tub it in its sauce. How did they become citizens? Farnsworth says they still have a pizza, and the story ends with the crew eating it. This contrived story was about Farnsworth being too old to know to cure the crew's sickness, and wishing he was young again. Somehow he blames it on him being old, and not on the fact that he's not that kind of doctor. And plus he obviously could cure them, in a sense, by just sending their minds to different clone bodies. The robot devil conveniently shows up right there to make a contract with him, as if he had spy cameras all over that somehow aren't discovered. And because he's desperate for an excuse to bring him to robot hell. For no reason. If he does anything with science, as if he has anything against science, he'll go back to being old. Why not just bring him to robot hell right away if he wants him there? Farnsworth had some fun traveling and spending the money stashed away that he didn't remember and get to when he was in Fry's body, or Zoidberg's body, or whichever young body he was in the body switching episode in the show. Although it's disappointing how he's dumb enough to get himself hurt by a huge barbell and Bender somehow thinks buying a tiger is a good idea. It's disappointing that he doesn't have a hedonistic, thrilling time like Rick would. Especially because he was clearly acting like him when he was in Fry's body earlier, so you'd think he would be cool again, not lame. And then when a lot of his inventions malfunction for absolutely no reason, without it even being explained that they were made to by the robot devil, he eventually saves them from a meteor, and gets out of being sent to robot hell because of Deus Ex Machinas, rather than him just shooting the robot devil with ray guns, or a security system that sends lasers at him on a button press. This story sucked. I was desperate for it to end the entire time. While it made sense that the crew didn't actually get lucky enough to all find people that were interested in them on the Sauce Planet, they just wanted to hide on their ship to escape that planet. I really hate that the crew got arrested and found guilty, even though they didn't know those fugitives were hiding on that ship in the first place. And they might as well have not even had a lawyer. It's so insulting to our intelligence that we don't even get to see how Bender managed to get a disguise as one of the cops transporting them, without being seen getting the disguise. He somehow managed to get them all to Planet Express. And Tony had an interesting and clever plan to break them out. So I wish that happened instead. At least had a reason to keep his kids trapped on that planet. But there's no reason they would have had nuclear missiles that they could launch by accident anyways. So if there was no reason for them to even do their plan, this whole plot shouldn't have happened.